the hype is real for this chapter. The last two panels, or actually it was the last two pages of this chapter were just, oh my god. I recently made a video, by the way, saying that Kuroki is the only person currently right now in the series that could probably fight Shen and Luohan, and I won't go over that too much. The video already exists, it's 8 minutes long, you can give it a watch later on. But Kuroki's here, he's challenging Shen Luohan, he's ready, he's literally in his fighting gear. He's like, yo, connector, it's time, alright? It is what it is, and I was excited. And then I started thinking about it. And unfortunately, I don't think this is gonna end well for Kuroki. And not in the way that most people are thinking. Most people are thinking Shen's gonna whip Kuroki's ass. I don't even think that's gonna happen. I think what I'm expecting, and I'm gonna sound like a fraud because of my latest video, but I think Yan is probably gonna be the one to fight Kuroki and probably beat him. The reason why I say that is very simple. Yan, in fact, off the gate, the Worm and Death Dealers did not want Shen and Luohan to actually fight. It was never really in the plan. Yan was particularly touchy on the subject, where he said it was a big deal. And so, I don't see Yan letting Shen and Luohan just fight like that. Unfortunately, there's also the fact that the Kengan match hasn't even been set yet. And so, if Kuroki's ready to fight right now, unless he challenges Shen and Luohan and then dips for the Kengan match, then I think, okay, it's gonna be a lot more interesting, the fight's gonna be fairly good. But to me, he looks like he's ready to throw hands right now. He's not waiting for a day. He's like, I'm here today, Shen and Luohan. And Yan is gonna be like, no, I'm here today. Get wrecked. Now, I will remind you that Yan is supposed to be fairly powerful. In fact, he was one of the first people Shen and Luohan thought of when he said people that could beat Gaio Mokaku. I've talked about Gaio Mokaku in 2 videos at this point. The man is powerful. He's one of the strongest characters we have seen in the series, hands down, no denying it. And so, Yan should have that buff. Which is why I probably don't want Kuroki to actually straight up fight in the next chapter, in the next few chapters. I am actually against this happening. But if it does happen, that's what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting Shen to fight Kuroki. I want that to be on record. And it's, again, I sound like a fraud because in the previous video, I was like, yeah, Kuroki. I was ready. I thought if Kuroki fights Shen and Luohan in that Kengan match, then the chances are that Kengan match will be a fairly hype fight. Sandro won't have Shen and Luohan destroy his opponent at that match, especially one that is so highly anticipated. I don't think Sandrovich is gonna do that. But outside of that fight, anything goes in my opinion. And so that's what I think about the most hype part of this. I'm happy we're gonna see Kuroki again. I'm happy that we're going to see him fight again. I am also worried. Well, I'm not necessarily worried. There's only a few ways this goes down, and it doesn't end well for Kuroki in any of the possible scenarios, unless he says, I'm going to challenge you, Shen and Luohan, and I'm gonna wait for the Kengan match. That's the best case scenario. But it seems as though that's probably not gonna happen. But let's move on to the rest of the chapter. Since we got the hype part out of the way, there is something very interesting that I did want to talk about for a bit. And that is the beginning of the chapter, where there was that pretty brutal moment with Luohan and Luohan. And I want people to more or less see this in light of, because it's very interesting how this chapter flows together in terms of the events. First, we start off with Luohan and Luohan and how it seems like they don't really like each other. At least, it seems as though Luohan has a distaste for Luohan of some sort. Despite the fact that he is his clone, it seems as though there's something that we just don't know. And so there seems to be beef. And this kind of does seem to have been hinted at because Death Dealers isn't really a part of the Worm. They were kind of a split off faction of sorts. And so, potential weakness maybe, but very interesting interaction that I probably will have to save for an entirely new video, an entire theory based on what happened here. But it heavily contrasts what happened with Ohma and Ryuki, which we're gonna assume are both clones of Luohan and Wulong. You have the clones of these guys having a good time, chatting it up and saying, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna beat Wulong, Shen Wulong, the connector. And I thought that was very interesting how those two moments are just in the same chapter, whereas there's this huge contrast being shown here. But besides that, I mean, we had the normal spiel of everyone sort of explaining what happened, with Misasa saying how strong Shen Wulong actually is, to where he explains that it seems as though Shen Wulong is just fundamentally different from everyone else. He's again, maybe 4 tiers above them, basically. And it really doesn't matter. But it seems as though, Yamashita, Nogi, and Toyota is actually going to try to set up the Kengan match, getting the government involved as well, since this is fairly big. It involves a terrorist organization. So this is something they're probably gonna need to get a few more people in the loop before they actually start doing anything that big. But even then, they still don't have a fighter. They're still trying to get the rules and everything just going. They have to make the match happen, essentially. And then they're going to pick a fighter from that point, which makes me think this might take, I would say, I don't know, a week, maybe a lot more than that. And although I don't think it'll take more than a month to set up the match. So the match isn't happening, in the next 5 chapters. I would say, actually it could happen after 5 chapters. Let me not say that. In real time, I don't think it will happen that the next day or the day after that. I think it will happen a week later in the series' time. But yeah, that's the video. If you, like the video, have any other spicy takes, because there's been spicy takes lately. What are your thoughts on Kuroki versus Shen and this entire chapter? And yeah, until next time, take it easy.